This podcast is sponsored by Tusk, an open source non-ICO crypto project powered by community. Check them out on the web at tusk.network. That's TUSC.network. The Rob McNeely program is the nexus of cryptocurrency, blockchain technology, and entrepreneurship. Now, welcome to the program. Today, I am excited because I am talking to Jason Fishman. He is with the Digital Niche Agency, a digital marketing agency based out in California, specializing in the blockchain space. We met a few weeks ago at World CryptoCon, and I had a really good time hanging out with them. So welcome to the show, Jason. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me, Rob. Excited to be on and chat in front of your audience.
Well, I appreciate it. So what's been going on? What have you been working on lately?
Sure. Busy in the conference schedule, going to Australia in a couple weeks. Right before I saw you in Vegas, was at Paris Blockchain Summit on a marketing panel, and CC Forum London on an investor panel. So always busy with the thought leadership type activations. Have an article coming out in Forbes tomorrow. Excited to be on the podcast today. That's where a lot of the focuses are during this time of the year. In the same breath, and I could go into my history, also working on some private round campaigns as well as blockchain user acquisition campains. So
not
always
busy at all.
busy. If I'm not busy, something feels off. I like balance. Running an agency, we're working on 15 to 30 projects at a time. So gives you a lot of different things to be creative about, and anything less than that, feels like an underused day.
So what's your background? How did you get into the marketing world?
Sure. So to go all the way back, about 12 years ago, I started in marketing as an action sports consultant. I grew up snowboarding, skateboarding, surfing here in California. Have a lot of friends in those industries, and started as an agency working on some of the biggest brands for their accounts, and getting into the world of tech, specifically around video sharing platforms. One of my projects was then acquired based on the success in the marketing launches, and I quickly started building my portfolio with accounts in other verticals, including music, fashion, telecom, travel. Eventually moved over to a different agency and led the new business team and being part of the whole pitch process and coming up with these creative ideas before going in-house, and played a role at a social gaming company here in Santa Monica, raised $3 million in seed capital, and was part of that initiative from the time it was an idea on a whiteboard all the way through funding into branded, licensed entertainment games. That's where I really learned user acquisition models and average revenue per user, essentially arbitrage of traffic and buying traffic lower than the cost that you're selling it, really ins and outs of the whole digital marketing landscape before getting into the world of ad tech. And that was through a partnership that we had at the social gaming company. Was able to work with a lot of top 100 advertisers in that period of time, and oversaw product marketing as well as sales. So I got to sit with publishers, figure out the best ways to engage and monetize their audience, to then take those ad units over to advertisers and find rollouts for these different pieces of inventory that were going to hit their goals, hit their deliverables. My overall focus has always been business growth, but being able to leverage marketing to do so, and algorithmically at that, was very exciting to me. With that, at this point, in-depth record of success, was asked to partner in this company, Digital Niche Agency, DNA, marketing DNA, since January of 2014. Since we've worked with over 300 clients, startups to product launches of larger brands as well too, but generally building a community and pushing them through a funnel to hit initial milestones and then scaling from there. In doing so, working with startups, we found fundraising to be a common theme, a common initiative, whether it was working on pitch materials, playing a role in investor meetings, working on the marketing sections of a business plan, or even more so the revenue sections of a business plan to show which channels we're going to drive each different metric in their projections. Eventually into equity crowdfunding. And still in 2014 here, I was bringing third-party data of accredited investors, investors with over $1 million net worth outside of their primary home or significant income over the past 3 years, and bringing them to offering pages. Using third-party data, we were surpassing some of the biggest agencies in the industry, and therefore we were getting a lot of calls from portals, from platforms that were running these type of campaigns, from websites. Think of it as an exchange, but just around the sale and purchasing of that private equity, not in the trade of it quite yet. But the industry was limited at that point, and the laws opened up more in 2016 as acknowledged by the SEC for us to use different filings and raise from both accredited and unaccredited investors. That's when this really became the biggest part of our client list. We saw those type of inquiries change to initial coin offerings in 2017, and particularly with the momentum in that year, that became our sole focus. So, whether they were international or equity crowdfunding campaigns with token offerings, with a token component to it, in some cases being bonused with tokens, we were working on investor acquisition. And we invested into the development of our own first-party data. So data that we then tested out for our clients and saw performance. And at this point have records of investors who participate in private sale, investors who participate in public sale. On the equity crowdfunding side, to throw a bunch of acronyms, but Reg CF, Reg A, Reg D, all the different filings, we have investors specific to those restrictions, have it broken down by geo-targets, geo-markets, essentially have records of millions of investors, and we then find audiences to A/B test against each other for these campaigns, and can measure, depending on how we're tracking and depending on the actual campaign setup, the cost per acquisition of each investor, the return on ad spend, and essentially provide opportunities for our clients to scale. Beyond fundraising, I should mention as well too, as we've seen things evolve from ICO to STO, some IEOs this year, we're also doing a lot of blockchain user acquisition campaigns, whether that's wallets or different types of apps or software, even some projects on the business-to-business side of things, finding ways to provide companies value and continue to build up their user base.
So of all the different projects that you've helped do raises, what was your biggest success story look like?
Sure. So we have published case studies, and I could speak to a few of those. We also have white label relationships where we're more in the background, and more restricted contracts where we're far in the background. So there's a lot more that I can't share than what I can. There is a $50 million raise project for a hybrid exchange that we worked on a few years back. Some of the team members were very public figures. They've since been acquired and traded, but Hybrid Block was a campaign where we had worked on user acquisition for their Telegram community audience, most focused on their public sale. Hit some very large metrics there. Beyond that, have worked on over 100 fundraising projects, the majority of which blockchain, and in a full spectrum from green energy to mining to exchanges to various market-specific currencies. Again, really a full spectrum of different projects, and get to advise on even more than the ones that we activate directly to.
So what do you see as some of the challenges of fundraising for, these different types of crowdsourced, kind of projects? What do you see as not only what are some of the challenges, but what do you see the biggest mistakes people are making when they're trying to raise money?
Sure. So raise money can be very broad. We've seen companies raise money by having a few conversations with people in their network and be able to close everything out from there. We've then been part of very visible public sale campaigns with high volumes of investors, and everything in between, of course. So there can be a lot of different variables for any of those. Timeline is something that I often see projected off by projects where they think they're going to be able to raise funds very quickly. Channels in which they're going to do so, whether that's their personal network, whether that's through specific capital groups. We'll keep it broad at capital groups, but through specific venture partners, broker-dealers. In regards to marketing, we've seen groups think that they're going to place a token sale page, do a couple paid article placements, and have a Telegram channel, have some type of community channel, given the point in time that they're at, and they're just going to be able to close out the round very quickly. I've certainly seen that happen. We've certainly been part of that happening, and oftentimes reflecting market conditions. But for me, it's all about creating a well-oiled machine of a marketing funnel. And to take it back even further than that, to have I'll use the word again, algorithmic strategy, where it's showing exactly which channels you're going to use, what you're anticipating those channels to produce in terms of if it's digital, impressions, clicks, and conversions, maybe some offline metrics for direct outreach, such as responses, meetings, and different types of written verifications that you want to track all the way through to completed investment. The only way to measure anything is with numbers. So without having that type of strategy, without having that type of plan, there's no way that you're going to be able to tell what's really working, what's not working, or to be able to effectively optimize if a channel's not working for you. Again, if that's a broker-dealer relationship or if that's paid advertising, you won't be able to tell where in that algorithm you're not getting the right traction, and therefore to be able to focus on improving things there. And you can say statements like, oh, broker-dealers didn't work for us. Advertising didn't work for us. You could completely miss the mark on these tools that are effective to other groups.
So speaking of tools, kind of being in the crypto space, and a lot of the normal channels that, a company or a project might use to market would be things like Facebook and Google and Twitter. And a lot of these platforms have, outright banned crypto related kind of content and advertising. What kind of challenge does that pose to you, and how do you deal with it?
Sure. So we get blanket statements all the time, such as, hey, I heard we can't advertise on Facebook. I heard we can't do anything on Google. And when I look at how I grade a good marketer, I'm looking at their problem-solving abilities. Anyone can set up a marketing campaign as followed by a template or an approach. Anyone can use creative that's been supplied by the client, or very basic creative that is reflecting competitors. But simply seeing success out of the gate doesn't make a marketer effective. What I like to see is their problem-solving abilities. What do they do when things are not working? And that's where you can gauge true talent, because campaigns are going to fluctuate. It could be the biggest brand in the world or a new startup. You will not see the same level of success day in, day out, year after year. It just doesn't occur like that. You have to be able to effectively optimize. So when I look at any of these channels and the restrictions, it's the same thing for me. It's how do we problem solve here? How do we get something approved? When speaking with reps at these platforms and asking how do we do this compliantly, they tell us what gets campaigns blocked. Trigger words. Can't say cryptocurrency, can't say ICO. However, you can say distributed ledger technology. You can talk about the function of the technology. You can give out info that serves an educational purpose without using those words, and therefore take an audience down a funnel where eventually they have an opportunity to directly participate in a security token offering, as an example. So it's all about how you use these channels. You can create a Facebook page, advertisements, a landing page. I'll mention the URL in that landing page as well too, that all do not use banned trigger words, But meanwhile, speak to your target audience and convey the value of your offering. And after that next landing page, be able to take them down a funnel that would be tougher to get approved. This is true with various categories. A few other examples go all the way to financial advising and supplements, but include CBD, firearms, various types of verticals, where if you bring an audience into more of a homepage or something that can get approved and doesn't talk about anything that's a little more gray, I've used the sporting goods store example, and if firearms are sold at that sporting goods store and someone clicks through to it, it's not going to be banned if it's not mentioned in the advertisement or the landing page, yet audiences could still end up purchasing an item or participating, let's say, an investment deal that, if it was blatantly listed in the advertisement and landing page, could be looked at as restricted. So by building funnels, we've been able to leverage those channels. And we've had to do so because those channels perform. There's over 40 million cryptocurrency enthusiasts that I can access with Facebook's third-party data. It's a combination of their first-party and third-party data. So both pages that they like and data partners that they have that have identified audiences with an affinity for digital assets. And by looking at their ad placement, by looking at the click-through rates, which are about 10 times higher than a standard banner ad click-through rate, by looking at the sheer conversion nature of it, by catching someone in their social advertising, in their social media experience, it's something that can't be ignored, even if it's for nothing else than retargeting. And they have Facebook, Instagram, the Audience Network. The Audience Network has it has a high volume of top tier sites so you could continue to retarget. You could continue to reach a user again and again and again. So I wouldn't look at these platforms and say, let's avoid them, or blanket statements such as my audience isn't on Google, they're not on Facebook. Facebook has over 1 billion users a day. And again, through their reach, you can touch people essentially everywhere they go online. I would look at how I can use them. And then my whole philosophy towards marketing as a whole, which again is a utility for business growth beyond just creative, my whole summary, my tagline, if you will, for marketing, I summarize in 3 words: test, optimize, scale. So I'm not saying use all of these channels and do them forever. More importantly, find some channels to test, figure out, as I mentioned in regards to the plan, what audiences you want to go after there, what creative that you want to use there, the projections for a full algorithm of performance metrics all the way through, and then optimize to improve performance, and then scale the channels that are working best. That's been my approach to it. It's been different in terms of the top driving channel, campaign to campaign, but there's definitely ways to leverage these platforms for what you're trying to do.
So a lot of the crypto world has, rightfully drawn arrows from the pay-to-play problem. A lot of influencer marketing, advertising that comes off as journalism, but it's actually advertising. It's all paid for. I know that was really important back, a year and a half, 2 years ago. Is that still important now? Is there really an ROI on doing those types of, paid campaigns? When we were initially, launching our token 2 years ago, I had people that had like 1,000 people or 1,000 subscribers on their YouTube channel, and they wanted $10,000, in some cases, to come and just get an interview. So,
Sure.
and I always looked at it like, I just don't see how there's a return on that investment, from the marketing side of it. What's your take on that?
Good question. The overarching statement would still be test, optimize, scale. Look at the ones you want to test out. But I'll tell you why it matters, why it's still good to consider these opportunities, not just rule them out. People don't trust what they see online. Social proof, third-party validation is a big part of a successful marketing campaign. And if you're able to leverage the right media publishers, the right influencers, the right communities, the right organizations of various types to validate what you're doing, refer them to your pages, to your assets. It can really go a long way. It can make the entire difference. It's hit or miss. We've seen influencers with very large audiences perform marginally at best. We've seen them perform in zero metrics that we could measure. We've then seen influencers with, under 10,000, under 1,000 in some cases, that the moment they talked about a campaign, everything, spiked. So, it is a matter of testing it out. We used to do straight influencer marketing campaigns. Now we call them outreach because of the way the influencer world has changed and the ways to interact with influencers. But essentially, when you're running an influencer campaign, you'd want to test 3, 10, 30 different influencers, depending on their size, and all in slightly different disciplines, slightly different audiences is a good way to look at it. You don't want to put all of your eggs in one basket, going back to some of the shortcomings I've seen groups hit in the past, where they thought, hey, we're going to have this one guy post about us and we're going to close out around in a few hours. And simply didn't occur like that. Again, I have seen ones that has happened, but best practices would be more to diversify. So let's try a few different publishers. Let's try a few different influencers. If it's paid advertising, which could speak at length about as well here too, let's try a few different ad placements, a few different data sets and different creatives. You want to have something to compare, something to, again, A and B test. But yes, it still plays a role. The pay-to-play sponsored content prices are going down. There was a point there in 2017, first half 2018, where everything was expensive and everyone wanted to be opportunistic regardless of the effectiveness of their media, and more speaking to their own revenue model and what they thought that it should be valued at. So, there's a lot of ways you can work with an agency or a third party, even over a phone call, not even a formal engagement, where they can give you a few tips on how to structure these conversations with publishers, with influencers, with any type of paid opportunity. There tends to always be some level of wiggle room if you're speaking managed service, if you're talking to another human. And I can give you a few ideas on how to do it if it doesn't seem like that avenue is available. But I would definitely evaluate them. They definitely still serve a purpose, and we've seen it be very effective for clients.
How do you see marketing in the crypto space changing over the next year, 2, 3 years?
Yeah. So
putting you on the
marketing
spot.
Campaigns and I want to be able to have a strong prediction here. So marketing has obviously changed, as the industry has over the past 2 years, past 2 months. Campaigns in September of 2019 look different from December, what we're planning on activating this week in 2019. And when it comes to investment opportunities, we're seeing a lot more attention around private rounds, which means longer sales cycles, smaller investment amounts, and in many cases, offline touch points. In-person meetings with investors, which groups, projects looked at as not as necessary 2 years ago. Marketing plays a large role in that. When we're looking at digital marketing, 7 touch points or more on average are required for a conversion. And if we're reaching that audience with the same creative, the same messaging, the same channel every time, it's going to have that fatigue. Where if we're building a content marketing funnel and showcasing momentum, giving investors the feel that, hey, this is a moving ship, it's going in this direction, and I want to be part of that, it's much different than if it's a stagnant conversation with a lot of repetition. So, being able to have more good fundamental marketing best practices implemented into these type of campaigns, which again, groups did with very little digital marketing a couple years back. Now I'm going to go out and say that's going to be more of a best practice. having more of that, I don't want to say corporate, but more professional look and feel of a larger organization, I think is going to be true for brands, and if nothing else, to convey trust. I am seeing the groups who have surpassed the crypto winter and overall thinning of groups in the industry. The groups that are surviving that are structured well, and they have good operating procedures in many areas of their business, including marketing. So going more to what does a brand look like? How should a company be operating? How should a decentralized organization be operating? And what should the look and feel be both on the platform and marketing off to attract more mass adoption? I think mass adoption is really the game moving forward here. And some of the biggest thought leaders, speakers in the space, I've seen move from pointing at smaller projects to change the world to even saying things like, hey, it's going to be the enterprise level businesses that are going to change the world. It's going to be them that are going to drive mass adoption of cryptocurrency, mass adoption of blockchain. Not to name any groups specifically, because I'm still filling things out in the direction of those organizations' true initiatives. But at the same time, when you look at groups with over 1 billion users and how they can bring that type of adoption to this technology, it's very exciting. And what's to follow from there? When you look at the chess game, and strategies were 5 moves deep, where those audiences going to be, a lot of possibilities open up. So even if it's not enterprise, appearing enterprise is going to be a big part of marketing strategies moving forward, I believe.
So last question, what does your ideal client look like?
Mm-hmm. So our values as an agency is being easy to work with, which means it's not limited to just one client. Communicate early and answer with algorithms. It's how we approach this. I say it because it's important in marketing conversations, regardless of the dynamic. And, to that extent, getting a feel for who we are, we look for situations we could provide value. In some cases, it's a quick advertising engagement where we're at the last part of their campaign, bringing traffic from our audiences and showing a very strong return. More of our standard model is starting with the marketing strategy, getting into the content marketing stages, driving traffic into that funnel with paid ads while doing direct outreach to those 4 areas. But for me, it's looking to align with projects that can have I don't want to say disruption or anything like that, but a very measurable impact in their vertical. To be able to align ourselves with projects that could lead that type of positive change, to be able to have case studies that showcase numerical results for those launches and how we played a role and we're part of it while it was working, while it wasn't, being able to scale from there is our ultimate goal. So, anything that's new or different, I like talking with them. I welcome a warm marketing conversation anytime. And, I've seen so many amazing ideas over the years, and dating back to, the first agencies I was at and telecom projects, that, just amazing technology that never saw the light of day, or that, had a very, very low awareness level. Marketing for me is the answer to that. That's why I focus on this. I can get millions of people, all types of top groups, or in some cases just very specific individuals to look at our clients, what they're doing, the ultimate goal that they have around it, and the effect it's going to have on all of their users and how that translates out, not to sound too idealistic, but to the world. That's really what's exciting me about what we do. So anywhere where we can really serve in that type of role to amplify and scale the right causes.
That's actually a good answer. Jason, where can people find out more?
Sure. So I'm accessible through LinkedIn, Jason Fishman. Our website, Digital Niche Agency. That's what DNA stands for, digitalnicheagency.com. And like I mentioned, we're always happy to provide insights, package them as recommendations for you, whether we have the opportunity to collaborate or not. So yeah, feel free to reach out to us as a company. Feel free to reach out to me individually. Always like to connect.
Jason, thanks so much for being on the show today.
All right. Thanks for having me, Rob.
Thank you for listening to the Rob McNeely program. Make sure you check us out on the web at robmcneely.com and subscribe to our podcast at YouTube, iTunes, and on the Google Play Store.